We started looking at different ways of financing water systems. The thing that held us back was the fact that investing in water and water equipment does not have tax benefits. Unlike solar, unlike oil and gas, finally this year we solved it. These very interesting things, which you're going to hear a lot more about, called opportunity zones.
Welcome to The Edge for Tomorrow, the podcast where founders and leaders in fintech and financial services reveal their strategies for success, growth, and staying ahead. I'm Tracy, CEO of Windsor Edge, and my job is simple, helping businesses grow faster and smarter. Let's jump into today's episode. Today, I'm chatting with Riggs EckelBerry, CEO and chairman of the board for Water on Demand.
I want to change the world yesterday. And that really comes from I had an early career in the nonprofit space. And then I was in the .com, which was like, that was change. We knew in the 90s and early 2000s, we were changing the world, right? Every minute, and it was super fast. And then I had an opportunity to become a CEO. And I landed eventually in the water industry, which is very change resistant. And I'm like, I'm going to change things. I'm going to change them. I'm going to change them. I'm going to change things. And eventually we found the fulcrum, the way to change the entire industry. Because look at it this way. There's tens of thousands of water companies. Another water company, woohoo, so what, right? You can make a living at it, and it's fine work, and the world needs that. But at the end of the day, how can you dramatically affect the state of our health, of the entire sanitation system, all of that? We realized that it's done with finance. So because it's finance, all of a sudden, we don't have to operate water companies. We can simply have money under management that we then put to work to purchase systems that are located at the points of use, and the people at the points of use, the clients, simply pay on the meter like they're used to, but the machine belongs to the fund, and along the way, a water company built it, and they're very happy because they made money. So the water industry is happy because they get to build machines, clients are happy because they don't have to come up with capital, and the fund is happy because it makes good returns. What is the net result of all that? I believe it's going to be a dramatic change in the water industry. Here's why. We are facing $1 trillion unmet budget by 2035, 10 years from now, and that $1 trillion will only keep growing. And nobody, in fact, we're going the opposite direction. The federal government is paying, it has not been paying a lot, and as we know, it's going to get worse. And, I personally am not a big government guy, so I'm all on board with that. But the question is, where's the money? The centralized model being funded by government is broken. We see that happening in many sectors. I call it forced decentralization, right? Companies or users have to adopt their own solutions because the centralized solutions are breaking up. For example, energy. We know we were falling way behind China, way behind. And what's the solution? Well, literally, it's these micro nuclear reactors that are literally everywhere. And as opposed to taking 25 years to build one giant nuclear reactor, you can have a bunch of these built in a few years. So you can just distribute them, right? I saw a model of one by the Department of Energy where they created a mini reactor that looks about like a traffic control box, and it services all the energy needs for 10 houses. Boom, that's it. Well, you just put a bunch of them in place and you've solved your problem. Similarly, in public transportation, we can't seem to get our act together with high-speed rail or whatever, but that's okay because we're going to have robotaxi. Again, individualized solutions, right? Everything's being individualized and solved at the local level, which is great because you can move fast, right? And that's the beauty of this model is industry and agriculture, which is 90% of the water problem, is also 90% of the solution because they can treat their own water with these micro water systems that are financed through the fund, which I can talk about in a bit, and then the problem's solved. And their load just went off the municipal system. Now, I'm not saying that the municipal system has to stop. For one thing, we need clean water from the government. I don't believe in clean water, in privatizing clean water, because guess what? It always gets messed up. So, it's just like, I don't think we should have private police either. I like the government to have police. So there's certain things that are just right for the government. The military is another one. Well, clean water is one of them. And they should also treat the water for consumers, residential. But we should get the industrial toxins off the system. And that will solve this trillion-dollar problem.
Having those type of interventions at the local level and having some controls at the local level in terms of businesses taking care of their own situation can also maybe work better hand in hand with local governments. There's a lot about localization in general that's shifting and making that look more attractive in all of the ways that you've outlined.
Not only that, life is more interesting. For example, Jamie Dimon talks about the fact that he tries to take all the functions in JP Morgan and push it down. So you empower people at the lowest possible level. Well, that makes their job interesting. And it also reduces the burden at the top, and it makes decisions better. There's a great example that the U.S. military operates very much on local initiative of the platoon commander or the soldier on the ground, whereas conventional Soviet doctrine back in the day was very centrally driven. And this makes the American soldier much more adaptive to what's going on. They have the power to get things done. I think that's become kind of the standard, which is why I say that was the old Soviet thing, because I think that's changing. Why? Because you can have these tiny devices like drones that can destroy fighter jets and tanks and you name it. And it's the most adaptable level. It's the one that can be most responsive and also the most democratic, isn't it?
Yeah. And meet the needs of the local level, of who's actually there, who's most impacted as well, oftentimes. So you dove into some really interesting facts about the changing water industry and your position in this. What factors led to you being at the center of this opportunity? How did things fall into place as they did?
Well, there's a very good book by a brilliant man, the late Clayton Christensen, who wrote a book called The Innovator's Dilemma. And in that book, he says that large, existing players resist change. Why? Because it'll break their business model, right? So he gives an example of the steam shovel being replaced by the Caterpillar diesel. Well, the steam shovel people did not want to do something that would be 1/100th of the cost. No way. Well, guess what? That made them vulnerable to the guy who was 1/100th of the cost. And here's what's interesting. Those advances often come from within the existing player, right? So he gives a whole history, for example, of the disk drive industry, which disk drives getting smaller and smaller. And each time a disk drive would be half the size, it would destroy the company that made the larger one. And it's almost comical. But the fact is that the big water is so wedded to the central utilities model because it's a giant check they get once from one customer. Thank you very much. And they're set, right? But it's not a giant check anymore. That's not how it's going to happen. It's going to happen in lots of microchecks. And so that's how I've been thinking for a long time. I was introduced to this book by a very smart guy, I think 2001, 2002. And it really informed my thinking. In a way, to disrupt, you've got to be small, right? Don't be big. A couple of years ago, we were working on merging with a SPAC, a special purpose acquisition company, a blank check company, to get on the NASDAQ. And we had these vast acquisition plans because we had to then meet Wall Street's expectations. And eventually we abandoned it because, in part, it was the wrong direction for us because we would have become another conventional player. So better to be a very narrowly focused player. And as a result, what we've been doing is we've been divesting our water equipment production and going straight into finance. And this, to me, is going to make it super important to the water industry. Why? Water equipment companies are very low margin. Their net profit is 16%. You have to make more than 11% to overcome inflation and currency debasement. That means you're making really 5% a year. Well, the slightest business problem, like a tariff, poof, you're toast. So it's not good to be low margin, and yet they are. Well, guess what? If we put in place this fintech model, their margins will rise, and it will become much more profitable to be in the water industry. Well, the simple math, if you're on Microsoft Office, you're paying $20 a month, let's say. You used to get it for $120 forever. One time, $120, you were done. Or you even got it for free. But whatever. The point is, at one-time expense, now you're paying more. So you as a customer are paying more, and you're actually happy. Why? Because you have service, you have updates, you have all these features that are automatic. You got OneDrive and the this and the Copilot, and they're all thrown in. And and so it's a good deal for the customer because they get what they want when they want it, and still they pay more. And that flows to all the players in the industry, but primarily to us, the guys who are financing it.
So you mentioned disrupting and what it takes to disrupt and, finding that sliver, right? Rather than coming in as a common player. Can you speak a little bit more to that?
I tell you, we have not been brilliant about this because you have a right idea. We started looking at different ways of financing water systems. The thing that held us back was the fact that investing in water and water equipment does not have tax benefits. Unlike solar, unlike oil and gas, which are so. I was once pitched by my CPA on investing in solar. He spent the first 20 minutes talking about the tax benefits before he even got to the part about how maybe I'll make money. Well, tax benefits, the deductions, the sheltering of your gains is hugely important when you're competing with other uses for the same dollar. And so we set up something a lot like oil and gas, where people make money from continuing production of the oil well, similar for a water well, quote unquote, fine. But the rewards weren't there from the taxation system. Finally, this year, we solved it. It came in the shape of these very interesting things, which you're going to hear a lot more about, called opportunity zones. They've been around since 2018, and opportunity zones, there's 8,000 of them roughly, located all over the U.S. in disadvantaged areas. And by the way, many of them today are not disadvantaged anymore because of this program. What it promised was if you kept your money in a OZ, Opportunity Zone fund, for 10 years, your gains at the end of the 10 years would be totally tax-free. Thank you very much. So, but the reason why we didn't use it at the time was because it was mostly devoted to commercial real estate. And that would be the investment in that opportunity zone, and it worked very well, except for one small problem. Commercial real estate is not a great investment today, and the office sector is still screwed up, and it's going to be for a long time. So what's happened is opportunity zones have now diversified, and you can run any business through an opportunity zone, and the investors get their growth tax-free. So we latched onto that so fast. We're like, yes, 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 yes. And we started we had a lot of metal bending businesses. And the problem with metal bending business is you're competing with other metal bending businesses. So we said, you know what? We're divesting all that good stuff. And we are instead going to finance. And that way we're not competing with the metal benders, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's an understatement to say that it's difficult to completely transition, but that's got to say something about your team.
Well, first of all, they are accustomed to pivoting. I mean, because I believe very strongly in pivoting. It's been said before that there's a sunk cost fallacy, right? If you pursue sunk costs, like, well, I've already spent this much on this, then I got to keep going, right? Well, I used to be in shipping. I was a ship captain at one time. And if you go off course and you persist in going off course, you're going to end up even more off course. And so at some point, you have to go, okay, I screwed up. I'm going back on course. And fine, I wasted time going off course. But you got to just stop the bad habit. And that's something that we do a lot in business. We try and sort of keep going what we've nurtured so hard. And the willingness to just break something off, it's really, really hard. So you got to be willing to just go, that's it. We're breaking with the old, and here's why. And my team, they think a lot like me. So they're like, okay, bring it.
So the first companies that you're helping, you've identified them as being the businesses that need to do it first. So who are those companies and why do they need to do it?
Well, we have this inverse triangle where at the very bottom is the people who have to have it. It's the smallest audience. But even, in a multi-trillion-dollar sector, a small audience is still a lot. And these are, for example, trailer parks, RV campgrounds, housing developments that have that are too far from sewage plants, and what are they going to do? And so these are, there's this land boom that's been going on between Dallas and the Oklahoma border of northern Texas, and they've been building housing developments like crazy, but they got this problem. What? You're gonna build a 10-mile or 20-mile sewage pipe? They're pressurized pipes. They're not just drainage pipes. The incoming water pipe's not a problem, but the outgoing sewage pipes are typically under pressure because they have to go over hill and dale and they have toxic stuff in them. And so that stuff makes it kind of creates this limit to how far you can go from a central utility. Now we've just completely liberated people. For example, one of our showcase sites is on the shores of Lake Denison. Lake Denison is literally on the Oklahoma border, and it's miles from nowhere. But there's a little 40-foot container that does all their treatment of all their black water, as they call it, their poop. Once a year, the sludge truck comes out and pumps it out, and it's fine. They're completely independent. So these are the first people. Now, the next people are those who will find it convenient or beneficial to do it. And that's a bigger audience, right? Not having to pay capital costs. But you say, well, rigs, right now I can connect to the municipal and there's no capital costs. Go, yeah, but the municipal utility right now is in hyperinflation. Water and sewage rates are inflating faster than college tuition and healthcare costs. And that's because of these unmet needs, right? Well, go ahead and build your own system. Your inflation is only the cost of the parts and the service on the machine. That's it. And all of a sudden, your inflation goes way, way down. And that's the benefit. And then the people have mentioned this as being very important is you don't have to deal with the politics of water. You're on your own. You're good. And I can do it without capital. So I go, okay, I'll do that. Sign a 20-year contract. And now I'm on the meter with a private operator. And that private operator comes in, maintains the machine, makes sure everything's fine. So basically, it's no muss, no fuss. It's really the ideal thing. I didn't have to pay anything up front, and I got off this incredible inflationary curve that's been going on with the central utilities. And that's number one, but there's more because now that you're treating the water, you can reuse the water, and now you're saving on incoming water, which is good for droughts, but it's also good for your wallet, right? It's money you saved.